Let's start this off by talking about a queue or a line, people waiting in line to get some fast food here. Maybe they're waiting in line at McDonald's. Now, I want to use this example because in fast food, there are very few access control lists for humans to enter that facility. If I'm a hungry guy and I want to go to McDonald's, what do? I pretty much walk in the door and order my food. They have one exception to that rule effectively, and that is no shirt, no shoes, no service. And that's what McDonald's, or any fast food restaurant for that matter, uses as their access control list. Do you have a shirt on? Yes. Do you have shoes on? Yes. Okay, you can enter. That's about it. So while these people are lined up, they just come into the restaurant, very few restrictions, and they can order their food and then leave. And the line keeps getting processed like this, once again, with very few restrictions. This is unlike a situation where maybe we have a bouncer involved at the door. And what I'm thinking of here is maybe a really fancy dance club, and we've got a bouncer there at the door, and he's got a clipboard. And the idea here is that the bouncer is acting as an access control list, or at least the bouncer is acting as the implementation of an access control list. And what's going to happen is we're going to get a woman that comes to the front of the line. Maybe her name is Monique. So Monique is waiting in line and she's talking with the bouncer and showing the bouncer her ID. And what the bouncer is going to do is look at his list. Now, the bouncer's been given a list by somebody in management, and they're given a list of the guest list of people that can get into the dance club. The idea behind this is they want a very select audience of only the best of the best people coming into the club. So they make this list of the folks that are allowed in. Notice that I'm on the list. Of course. Anyway, we make this list of folks and then we hand that to the bouncer. Now the bouncer, what he's going to do is compare that list to the people that are in line. So he's going to scan through that list. There's Monique's name, so she's definitely on that waiting list. If the person, though, that's at the front of the line comes up, they hand the ID to the bouncer, and their name isn't on the list, the bouncer has kind of an implicit rule that he uses here. And the rule is deny everybody else, right? I don't care who they are, just deny anybody else that's not on the list. So we call this an implicit rule. An implicit rule meaning that we don't have it written down, but it's there, it is applied, and it's used. So if you're not on the list, the bouncer is under strict instructions, even though it's not written down, to deny anybody whose name is not on this particular list. So the bouncer looks through the list. He says, oh yeah, Monique, you're good to go. You're on the list. Go have fun in the club. So Monique goes into the club. And then the next patron comes to the front of the line. It's this dude. This is Nico. Nico hands the bouncer his ID, and the bouncer goes, oh, you're on the list. And Nico gets into the bar. Right, next person comes along. Here we have Fiona. And Fiona's dressed up in her best Star Wars gear and Princess Leia hair. And the bouncer gives her an odd look and says, oh, your name is Fiona. You're on the list. You can go into the bar. So then we get Bill coming, and he's in his Star Wars gear too, and he's thinking, oh, well, that other woman with the Star Wars gear got in. Maybe I can get in too, and Bill gets to the line, and the bouncer looks on the list, and the bouncer has to implement his implicit deny all and turn Bill away, saying, sorry, Bill, you're not on the list. You can't come in. So this list of names here, this is just one characteristic that we can select on. Maybe we have a different dance club that's odd, and maybe they select on other things like a red shirt or black hair or green shoes, or maybe they only let people with purple eyes into the dance club. Well, I mean, there may not be anybody on earth that has purple eyes, but you can get some contacts and put contacts in and have purple eyes. So maybe that's how you get into the bar, with your purple eyes and green shoes. Regardless, what I'm getting at here is that we can use almost any characteristic that we want to select the folks that are allowed into this dance club. And what we have here is a list. Our access control list is this clipboard that the bouncer has, and then the bouncer is applying that list to the front door of the dance club, saying, if you're on the list, you get in. If you're not on the list, you don't get in. Well, let's take a look at another example, like the amusement park. In the amusement park, maybe we have this really big roller coaster, the world's biggest roller coaster, right? And for safety reasons, they put a sign up in front of the roller coaster's line saying, hey, this is the really big coaster. You must be at least this tall to ride this coaster. So our first customer comes along and he is taller than the minimum height, so he is allowed onto the ride. Then a woman comes along and the same thing happens. She's taller than the minimum height, so she's allowed on the ride. And then we have this young person or a shorter person come along that's not tall enough to ride the ride, and unfortunately, they are turned away and cannot get on the roller coaster. And there's no arbitrary reason to this. The reason is the safety reason, that if you're not that tall, you might run the risk of slipping through any safety harnesses that are strapping you into the coaster. And the last thing you want to do is ride a roller coaster that's fun and end up getting hurt. So we're turning away people who don't meet that minimum requirement for safety reasons. We see these access control lists all over the place in the real world. So now, as we're learning access control lists, look around the world around you and see how many access control lists are being applied to you in your everyday life.